Before you ask what was on my plate, understand this. 12 hours earlier, that creature had been the most feared weapon in the Korth Dominion. Commander Vera Thal stared at the dark, steaming cut of meat resting beneath a silver serving dome, and for the first time in her decorated career, she had no idea what expression belonged on her face. Across the long diplomatic table, Jack Mercer sat with one shoulder wrapped in clean white bandages, his gray-blue eyes calm, his posture loose, as though this were a neighborhood cookout instead of the most dangerous dinner in Earth's history. The room held 47 representatives, 6 armed Korth officers, 3 human ambassadors, and enough tension to power a small city. No one spoke. Even the ventilation system seemed to lower its voice. Vera looked down again. The meat was nearly a foot across, its outer edge covered by a thin strip of black armor that had curled under the heat. She knew that armor. Every Korth child knew it. Dreadmaw plating had survived plasma storms, military restraints, and the teeth of lesser predators. It was not supposed to sit beside roasted potatoes. What, Vera finally asked, is that? The human chef stood beside her with the nervous smile of a man who had been told this was technically diplomacy. Smoked Dreadmaw's shoulder, he said. 8 hours over hickory. Pepper, salt, garlic, little brown sugar. Vera's silver eyes widened. One of her officers made a sound somewhere between disbelief and outrage. Jack picked up his glass of water. It's better with the sauce, he said. The officer nearest Vera rose so quickly that his chair scraped across the floor. Captain Rask was 7 feet tall, armored from throat to ankle, and famous for solving diplomatic disagreements by becoming the largest object in the room. His hand moved toward the ceremonial blade at his belt. Jack did not stand. He did not raise his voice. He simply reached across the table with his fork. There was one soft tap. Rask froze. The fork had caught the loose edge of his glove and fastened it neatly to the thick tablecloth, stopping his hand inches from the blade. Jack took another sip of water. Sit down. Captain. Rask pulled once. The table shifted. The fork did not. Every human at the table remained perfectly still, but Vera noticed their eyes. They were watching exits, hands, distances. None of them looked surprised. That frightened her more than Jack's speed. Rask slowly sat. Jack removed the fork, wiped it with his napkin, and returned it beside his plate. Now, he said, we can have dinner like civilized people. Vera stared at him, then at the meat, then at the quiet human guards lining the walls. 12 hours earlier, she had brought the Dreadmaw to Earth as a warning. The beast had broken Korth warriors, emptied settlements, and turned entire armies away without a shot being fired. The Dominion believed fear was a universal language. They believed Earth would understand it immediately. They had been wrong about that. They had been wrong about Jack Mercer. Most of all, they had been wrong about which creature in the room was supposed to be afraid. Vera lowered her gaze to the plate as the chef offered her a small bowl of red sauce. Barbecue, he asked. Somewhere above the city, the Korth fleet waited for her command. Somewhere beneath the table, Rask's hand was still trembling. Jack leaned back in his chair and gave her a polite smile. Go ahead, Commander, he said. You brought it all this way. That was when Vera remembered the moment the transport doors had opened that morning, the moment the Dreadmaw had first smelled Earth's air, and the moment Jack Mercer had looked at the deadliest predator in her empire and asked a question no Korth officer had ever considered. How much does it weigh after cleaning? 12 hours earlier, Commander Vera Thal stepped onto the landing platform outside New Denver and expected applause, fear, or at least the respectful silence owed to a representative of the Korth Dominion. She received wind. Cold, dry, irritating wind that tugged at her ceremonial cape, while hundreds of humans watched from behind security barriers with expressions that looked less like terror and more like curiosity. Behind her, the armored transport lowered its ramp. The Dreadmaw cage rolled into daylight on 6 reinforced wheels, each one taller than a human child. The beast remained hidden behind black alloy panels, but its breathing traveled through the metal in slow, heavy pulses. Several Korth guards stood farther from the cage than protocol required. Vera pretended not to notice. Then Jack Mercer arrived. He wore a dark security uniform without medals, armor, or any visible weapon beyond a compact radio clipped to his shoulder. He was 6 feet tall, broad through the chest, and entirely unimpressive by Korth military standards. Captain Rask looked him over and clicked his teeth in amusement. This is Earth's security specialist. Jack stopped 10 feet from the ramp. His eyes moved across the guards, the transport, the wheel locks, and finally the cage. Jack Mercer, he said. Site security. Vera extended one hand. Commander Vera Thal, I have brought a demonstration of Korth strength. You brought an animal through customs? Jack replied. That is a little different. Rask stepped forward, offended by the calmness in his voice. Show respect when addressing the commander. He placed one armored hand against Jack's shoulder and pushed. Jack moved half a step. Nothing else changed. Rask pushed again, harder. Jack turned slightly, caught the captain's wrist, and guided the arm past him. Rask stumbled 2 steps before recovering. His sidearm was suddenly missing. Jack held it by the grip, examined the safety switch, and offered it back. You dropped this. The humans nearest the platform tried not to smile. They failed. Rask took the weapon without speaking. Vera felt the first small crack in her confidence, but she covered it with annoyance. The Dreadmaw has ended uprisings without entering combat, she said. Entire colonies have surrendered after hearing it roar. Jack walked toward the cage. The nearest Korth handler backed away as the beast shifted inside. A metallic thud shook the platform. Jack did not flinch. He crouched beside the front wheel and studied the locking assembly. Who prepared this transport? Our finest containment engineers, Vera answered. Jack touched a thin line along the lower hinge. Then your finest engineers should know what fresh tool marks look like. The smile left her face. Rask moved closer. Are you accusing the Dominion of sabotage? I am saying somebody weakened this lock. Another impact sounded from inside the cage. This one bent the outer panel by half an inch. The Korth handlers stepped back together. Jack stood and looked through the narrow viewing slit. 2 pale eyes opened in the darkness and fixed on him. The Dreadmaw released a low growl. Jack tilted his head, studying the shape of its jaw. How much does it weigh? Vera answered slowly. Almost 3,000 pounds. Fast. Faster than your ground vehicles over short distances. Venom. Enough to disable most known species. Jack nodded as though reviewing a grocery delivery. Then he looked at the damaged lock again. Clear the civilians from the east side. Move your guards behind the concrete barriers. Nobody stands in front of this cage. Rask laughed. You are frightened. Jack met his eyes. No, Captain. I am experienced. From inside the transport came the sharp sound of metal beginning to split. Jack reached for his radio. Control, start moving the crowd now. Vera stared at the widening seam in the cage door and realized the human had noticed the danger before every Korth expert on the platform. Jack took 1 step back, never looking away from the beast. Commander, he said quietly, your demonstration is about to become a problem. The first evacuation alarm sounded across the landing platform, but Captain Rask raised one armored hand and ordered the Korth guards to hold their positions. There will be no retreat, he announced. The humans came to witness strength. Jack Mercer kept his attention on the cage. The narrow seam near the lower hinge widened another fraction of an inch. They are witnessing poor maintenance, he said. Rask stepped between Jack and the transport. You embarrassed me in front of my commander. You handled that part yourself. Several human security officers heard him. None of them laughed, but their faces came close. Rask's jaw tightened. He pointed toward a circular demonstration zone painted on the concrete. Stand there. Prove that Earth deserves a place at this negotiation. Jack looked past him at the civilians moving toward the eastern exits. I already have a job. Then refuse, Rask said loudly. Let everyone see what human courage looks like. Vera watched the crowd slow. Phones rose. Reporters turned their cameras toward Jack. Rask had transformed a safety crisis into a public challenge, and he was smiling because he believed Jack had only 2 choices: fight and lose, or walk away and look afraid. Jack gave him a third. No, Rask blinked. No. The cage is failing. I am not wasting time protecting your pride. A heavy impact rolled through the platform. The transport shifted nearly 6 inches. Dust jumped from the pavement. Inside the cage, the Dreadmaw began breathing faster. Jack counted the rhythm under his breath. For short breaths. 1 long pause. Then another strike. It is testing the hinge, he said. It knows where the weakness is. The lead Korth handler shook his head. The creature does not plan. It reacts. The next impact landed on exactly the same spot. Jack looked at him. Then it is very lucky. Rask reached for Jack's radio, perhaps intending to silence the evacuation order. Jack caught the captain's forearm, turned with the movement, and guided him into the demonstration circle. Rask remained upright, but his weapon belt, wrist control, and balance were suddenly under Jack's control. It happened so smoothly that Vera did not understand the position until Rask tried to move and could not. "Release me," he growled. "Gladly." Jack let go and stepped back. Rask lunged forward, expecting resistance. Jack shifted one foot. The captain rushed past him and collided with a padded equipment rack, which rolled several feet before stopping. No one cheered. The silence was worse. Rask turned, furious, while Jack calmly retrieved the radio that had fallen near his boot. "East side is almost clear," a human voice reported through the speaker. 30 seconds. "Good," Jack replied. "Move medical teams behind the second barrier." Rask marched toward him again. This time Jack raised one finger. "Captain, you can keep trying to impress the crowd, or you can help me keep them alive." Another metallic crack cut through the air. One of the transport's locking pins shot loose and bounced across the concrete. The Korth guards finally broke formation. Some moved toward the barriers. Others raised their rifles. Jack immediately stepped into their line of fire. "Lower those weapons. If you panic that animal, it comes through the door faster." Vera stared at him. "How can you know that?" Jack pointed toward the viewing slit. The Dreadmaw's pale eyes were not watching the armed guards. They were fixed on the civilians. "Because it is not angry," he said. "It is hunting." The cage door bent outward. Rask lifted his rifle anyway. Jack removed it from his hands before the captain could aim. Then he checked the power setting, switched it off, and returned it. "You keep losing things," Jack said. The final evacuation vehicle cleared the eastern lane. Jack turned toward the transport as the hinge gave another sharp groan. Behind him, every Korth officer waited for an order from Vera. Ahead of him, 3,000 pounds of armored predator pressed against a door that had seconds left. Jack rolled his shoulders once and spoke into the radio. "Seal the west gate. Open the service road. Give it one direction to run." Vera finally understood what made him dangerous. He was not trying to prove that he was stronger than Rask. He was already thinking 5 moves beyond everyone else. The cage door shifted again, and Jack looked at the Dreadmaw without fear, anger, or excitement. "Come on," he said quietly. "Show me how smart you are." The cage door did not explode. It opened with a slow, terrible bend, as if 3,000 pounds of muscle had decided that steel was merely a suggestion. The Dreadmaw pushed one armored shoulder through the gap, then another, and the entire landing platform seemed to shrink around it. Its 6 legs touched the concrete one after another. Its head rose nearly 10 feet above the ground. Black plates covered its back, while pale eyes tracked every moving shape with calm precision. The Korth guards had called it a mindless beast. Jack Mercer watched it ignore the loudest soldiers and focus on the final evacuation vehicle. "It understands targets," he said into his radio. "Keep that road open." Captain Rask raised his rifle. Jack knocked the barrel aside before he could fire. The plasma burst struck an empty light tower, showering harmless sparks across the far edge of the platform. The Dreadmaw turned toward the sound. "You just gave it a new reason to stay," Jack said. Rask tried to recover the weapon, but Jack removed the power cell and dropped it into his own pocket. 3 other Korth guards aimed at him. Commander Vera Thal ordered them to lower their rifles, but fear had already reached the line. One guard fired. Then another. The shots flashed against the Dreadmaw's outer plates without slowing it. The creature lowered its head and charged. The Korth formation broke instantly. Jack did not run with them. He ran across their path, waving both arms and drawing the beast toward the open service road. "Mercer, move," a human officer shouted through the radio. Not yet. A family of 4 was still trapped beside a disabled shuttle near the western barrier. The Dreadmaw saw them. Jack saw it see them. He changed direction. The creature followed. It crossed 50 yards with frightening speed, each step shaking loose dust from the nearby structures. Jack reached the shuttle first. He opened the passenger door, pulled 2 children out, and pointed their parents toward the underground access tunnel. "Do not look back. Keep moving." The Dreadmaw was less than 100 feet away. Rask and 2 Korth soldiers appeared behind Jack, but they were not coming to help. Their weapons were aimed at him. "You saw the damaged lock," Rask said. "That makes you a problem." Jack looked at the soldiers, then at the approaching beast. "This is your timing." Rask fired. Jack moved behind the shuttle as the shot passed over the hood. The Dreadmaw reacted to the flash and changed targets. It rushed toward the Korth soldiers. They scattered, leaving Rask alone in the open. Jack could have stayed behind cover. Instead, he stepped out, grabbed Rask by the rear plate of his armor, and pulled him behind a concrete support seconds before the creature passed. The Dreadmaw struck the abandoned shuttle and pushed it across the pavement like an empty shopping cart. Rask stared at Jack. "You saved me. Do not make me regret it." Jack took the captain's rifle, removed the remaining power cell, and handed the useless weapon back. Then he climbed onto the service barrier and struck the metal rail with the rifle stock. The sharp sound caught the Dreadmaw's attention. Its pale eyes locked onto him. "Jack," Vera called from the control tower. "What are you doing?" He waited until the creature turned fully toward the road. Then he jumped down on the far side and began running away from the city. "Giving it what it wants," he answered. The Dreadmaw followed him through the gate. Behind them, the landing platform fell silent. Vera watched the human lead the deadliest creature in her empire toward the open country with no armor, no working weapon, and no visible fear. That was the moment she realized Jack Mercer had never been trapped with the beast. The beast had been trapped with him. Jack Mercer kept the Dreadmaw moving east, away from New Denver and toward the dry foothills beyond the landing complex. He did not run at full speed. That confused Commander Vera Thal more than anything else. From the pursuit vehicle, she watched him slow whenever the creature fell behind, then accelerate when it closed the distance. He was not escaping. He was measuring it. Every turn gave him another answer. The Dreadmaw could cross open ground faster than any human vehicle, but it needed several steps to change direction. It favored the right side when climbing. Its pale eyes tracked heat, while its hearing focused on sharp metallic sounds. Jack used every weakness. He crossed a shallow creek to cool his clothing, moved through the shadow of a concrete drainage channel, then struck a roadside sign with a loose stone. The Dreadmaw followed the sound and lost nearly 50 yards. "He is studying it," Vera said. Captain Rask stood beside her, one hand resting near his replacement weapon. "He is delaying the inevitable." Vera looked at the tactical display. Jack had already led the beast 3 miles from the nearest civilian shelter. Nothing about his path was random. "No," she said. "He is choosing the battlefield." The Korth pursuit. Team reached the edge of an abandoned mining road where the terrain narrowed between steep walls of red stone. Jack disappeared behind a ridge. Rask ordered the driver to increase speed. A moment later, the front wheels dropped into a trench hidden beneath loose dirt and canvas. The vehicle tilted hard and stopped. No one was injured, but every Korth soldier was thrown off balance. Jack appeared above them on the ridge. "You should watch the road," he called. Rask climbed out with 4 guards. "You interfered with a Dominion operation. Your operation released a predator beside a city. You will surrender." Jack glanced toward the distant dust cloud moving between the hills. "You have about 90 seconds before surrender becomes a very small concern." Rask signaled the guards forward. Jack stepped behind a stack of rusted mining equipment. The first guard followed and found his rifle pulled sideways by a cable wrapped around the barrel. The second tried to circle around, only to trigger a loose tarp that dropped over his helmet and blocked his vision. Jack moved between them, removed both power cells, and stepped away before either soldier understood what had happened. The third guard raised a plasma rifle. Jack tossed a handful of gravel against the metal wall behind him. The Dreadmaw changed direction toward the sharp sound. Vera heard its roar echo through the canyon. Every Korth soldier froze. Jack did not. He caught the third rifle, twisted the power unit free, and separated the long metal housing from the stock. "You are destroying military equipment," Rask said. Jack examined the hollow barrel. "I am recycling." He attached the housing to a 6-foot length of steel pipe lying beside the road, secured it with cable, then tested the balance. The result looked primitive. It also looked effective. Vera stepped from the vehicle and aimed her sidearm at him. Jack continued working. "You should stop," she said. "Your captain ordered." The lock weakened, Jack replied. The canyon went quiet. Rask reached for his weapon. Jack threw the empty power cell at the ground near his feet. Rask flinched, and Jack crossed the space between them before the captain could recover. A quick turn left Rask seated against the side of the disabled vehicle, his own belt fastened around both wrists. You knew, Vera said. Fresh cuts. Hidden firing positions. Soldiers more interested in me than the animal. Jack lifted the improvised spear. You did not bring a demonstration. You brought an accident with witnesses. The Dreadmaw appeared at the mouth of the canyon, its black armor shining under the Colorado sun. The Korth guards backed away. Jack stepped toward it. Vera lowered her sidearm without realizing she had done so. It followed you, she whispered. Jack watched the creature shift its weight before the charge. That was the idea. He moved toward the narrow mining pass, carrying nothing but the steel spear and a coil of cable. It is not hunting me, Commander, he said. I am leading it. The mining pass narrowed to less than 20 feet, with rusted support beams crossing overhead and old cable lines disappearing into the rock. Jack Mercer moved through it without looking back. The Dreadmaw followed, slower now, its claws scraping against stone as it tested the confined space. Commander Vera Thal watched from the canyon entrance with 3 unarmed guards. Captain Rask remained secured beside the disabled vehicle, shouting orders that no one obeyed. Jack stopped beneath an abandoned loading frame and wrapped his cable around a steel column. He tied the other end to a suspended or cart hanging 30 feet above the path. Vera studied the arrangement. You cannot defeat it with mining equipment. Jack pulled the knot tight. I am not trying to defeat it yet. The Dreadmaw entered the pass. Its black armor brushed both walls, forcing it to move in a straight line. Jack struck the steel column with the base of his spear. The sound rang through the canyon. The beast accelerated. Jack waited until it was less than 40 feet away, then stepped behind the support beam and pulled the release lever. The ore cart dropped across the path, not onto the creature, but behind it. The impact filled the pass with dust and blocked the only easy exit. The Dreadmaw turned its head, confused by the sudden barrier. Jack had learned something else. It did not like losing control of its escape route. It is afraid, Vera whispered. Everything is afraid of something, Jack replied. A plasma shot flashed past his shoulder and struck the rock wall. 2 more Korth soldiers had arrived along the upper ridge, weapons aimed into the pass. Rask had called them before Jack disabled the pursuit vehicle. Their commander ordered Jack to surrender. Jack looked up at the steep slope, then at the Dreadmaw below. You are standing above an animal that hunts heat, he called. You may want to stop glowing. The soldiers fired again. The Dreadmaw turned toward them and began climbing the angled rock face with alarming speed. The Korth soldiers retreated, but Jack was already moving. He pulled a second cable from the ground, tightening it across the ridge trail at knee height. The first soldier stumbled and slid safely into a bank of loose gravel. The second lost his rifle when Jack caught the sling and guided the weapon away from the canyon. Jack removed both power cells and sent the soldiers toward Vera. Stay behind the stone wall, he said, and keep quiet. One soldier stared at him. You protected us. You were distracting my animal. Jack returned to the pass before either Korth could answer. The Dreadmaw dropped back to the canyon floor and charged him. Jack waited until the last possible second, then stepped around the steel column. The creature tried to turn. Its rear legs lost traction on the loose gravel, and its armored side struck the support frame. The old structure groaned but remained standing. Jack was already 10 feet away. Vera raised her empty hands in disbelief. You knew it could not turn there. I suspected. You risked your life on a suspicion? Jack adjusted the grip on his spear. That is why I tested it first. The Dreadmaw recovered and faced him again, but its behavior had changed. It no longer charged immediately. It watched. Jack watched back. Predator and human stood motionless in the dust while the Korth guards held their breath. Then a warning tone sounded from Vera's communicator. A Dominion strike shuttle was approaching the canyon with orders to remove every witness. Jack heard the message. He looked at the sky, then at the beast blocking the pass. That complicates things, Vera said. Jack gave the Dreadmaw a thin smile. No, Commander. It gives me air support. The strike shuttle came over the ridge low and fast, its engines throwing dust across the canyon floor. Commander Vera Thal recognized the markings immediately. Black wings. Red command stripe. No diplomatic identification. The pilot had not come to rescue anyone. Jack Mercer watched the shuttle circle once, then studied the Dreadmaw as it tracked the heat above them. How strong is that shuttle's armor? He asked. Strong enough to survive ground fire, Vera answered. That was not my question. The Dreadmaw lowered its body, 6 legs spreading across the narrow pass. Its pale eyes followed the aircraft with perfect focus. Jack moved toward the abandoned loading controls and found the cable used to lift or from the canyon. The shuttle opened its forward weapon ports. Vera stepped behind the stone wall with her guards. They will fire whether I am here or not. I know. Jack looped the cable through the frame of the Fallen or cart, then carried the free end across the pass. The Dreadmaw followed every movement. It was learning him now. That made the next mistake more dangerous. The shuttle descended to less than 100 feet, searching for a clear angle. Jack struck the steel rail with his spear. The creature charged. He waited until the last moment, then ran beneath the loading frame and pulled the cable tight. The Dreadmaw crossed the line, dragging the cart behind it. The sudden noise made it turn toward the shuttle. The pilot fired a bright warning burst into the empty ground. That was enough. The creature climbed the rock wall with terrifying speed and launched from the ridge. It did not reach the aircraft, but its armored back struck the shuttle's landing assembly. The pilot lost control. The craft spun once and settled hard onto a flat stretch of sand beyond the pass. Emergency systems activated. No explosion followed. Jack looked at Vera. Air support. 3 Korth soldiers climbed from the shuttle and raised their weapons. Jack moved before. They formed a line. He threw his cable around a support post and pulled, dropping a curtain of old mining fabric between them. Their targeting systems filled with false heat readings from the sun-warmed material. Jack crossed the distance, removed the first rifle, switched off the second, and guided the third soldier into a shallow drainage trench. All 3 were standing again within seconds, but none still held a weapon. Behind the wall, Jack ordered. They obeyed. The Dreadmaw returned to the canyon floor. Dust covered its black plates. One front leg favored the ground, but the creature remained fast. It faced Jack and released a low, steady growl. Jack planted the steel spear beside him and pulled the last length of cable through a rusted pulley. It knows your tricks, Vera said. Good, Jack replied. Now it will expect another one. The Dreadmaw advanced slowly. Jack backed toward a narrow section where the canyon turned sharply around a stone pillar. Rain began to fall, sudden and cold, turning the dust into slick red mud. The creature charged. Jack moved left. It corrected. He moved right. It corrected again. Vera understood. Jack was teaching it to follow his body instead of the terrain. At the final second, he dropped flat and pulled the cable. The suspended or gate swung across the path, forcing the creature to turn around the stone pillar. Its 6 legs lost traction. Its momentum carried it into the soft bank, where it became wedged between rock and steel supports. Jack approached carefully, spear ready, but the Dreadmaw could no longer gain leverage. It pushed once. The canyon answered with a deep groan. Jack stepped closer, found the release point beneath the lower armor, and pressed the spear shaft into the restraint mechanism attached to its transport collar. The collar tightened and locked against the support frame. The creature stopped struggling. Vera stared at the human standing 3 feet from the deadliest predator in the Dominion. He had not overpowered it. He had made strength irrelevant. Jack looked back at her through the rain. Big animal, he said. Small turning radius. Then the support beam above him cracked. The support beam broke above Jack Mercer with a sound like thunder trapped inside the canyon. He moved before Commander Verathal could shout. 1 step back. 1 turn of the shoulder. The falling steel struck the ground where he had been standing and tore the transport collar loose from the mining frame. The Dreadmaw was free. It rose through the rain, shook mud from its black armor, and fixed its pale eyes on Jack. Every Korth soldier retreated. Jack did not. He lifted the improvised spear and walked toward the center of the pass, drawing the creature away from Vera and the unarmed guards. You trapped it once, Vera called. It will not make the same mistake. Neither will I. The Dreadmaw advanced without charging. It had learned patience. Jack watched its shoulders, not its teeth. The left front leg remained stiff from the fall. The head tilted before every turn. The lower armor opened slightly whenever it drew a deep breath. 3 small details. 3 chances. The creature moved. Jack stepped sideways and drove the spear against the exposed seam beneath its chest. There was no dramatic strike, no roar of triumph. Only a hard metallic sound as the spear activated the damaged control unit still attached to the transport collar. The collar released a powerful containment pulse. The Dreadmaw stopped, lowered itself to the wet ground, and became still. Jack remained beside it until the pale eyes closed. Vera approached slowly. Is it dead? It is not getting back up. Before she could answer, engines sounded beyond the ridge. 6 Dominion landing craft descended around the canyon. Their doors opened, and armored Korth troops formed firing lines across the high ground. Captain Rask had freed himself and reached their command channel. His voice echoed from a loudspeaker. Commander Thal has been compromised. Eliminate the human and secure the creature. Jack looked at Vera. Your people have a strange approach to diplomacy. A new voice answered through the canyon speakers. So do ours. Human aircraft crossed the clouds overhead. They did not fire. They released clouds of reflective material that blinded Korth targeting sensors and filled every tactical display with false positions. Earth security teams appeared along the ridges in simple gray armor. They moved in groups, covered one another, and aimed at weapons rather than soldiers. Korth rifles shut down one after another as human marksmen struck cooling ports, power cells, and exposed sensor nodes. The Dominion troops tried to advance, but foam barriers rose from hidden ground launchers and sealed the narrow paths. Within 90 seconds, every Korth soldier was standing, unharmed, and completely unable to fight. Rask raised his sidearm. Jack threw the empty spear shaft. It struck the weapon from his hand and sent it sliding through the mud. You really do keep losing those, Jack said. Rask looked around at the silent rifles and lowered his arms. Vera had seen Korth forces conquer cities. She had never seen an army lose without understanding when the battle had begun. Human medical teams entered the canyon first. Scientists followed, surrounding the Dreadmaw with scanners. One technician studied the results and looked toward Jack. The tissue is clean after the venom glands are removed. High protein. Similar fat content to wild boar. Jack wiped rain from his face. So it is edible? The technician hesitated. Technically. A security officer beside him smiled. We have a smoker at the diplomatic center. Vera stared at them. Her people had brought their greatest symbol of terror to frighten Earth. The humans were discussing seasoning. Jack looked down at the fallen creature, then toward the captured Korth troops. Salt, pepper, low heat, he said. And somebody find barbecue sauce. By the time Commander Vera Thal returned to the diplomatic center, the storm had passed, and the city lights were coming on beneath a clear Colorado sky. The long table had been reset. The damaged uniforms were gone. The frightened guards had been replaced by quiet human security officers who stood near the walls with the calm posture of people who already knew where every exit led. Jack Mercer sat across from Vera with fresh bandages around one shoulder and a glass of water beside his plate. He looked tired, but not impressed with himself. That unsettled her more than boasting would have. The Korth officers seated beside her did not touch their food. Captain Rask kept one hand under the table, close to the ceremonial blade he had been permitted to retain. The human chef entered and placed a covered silver dish before Vera. When the lid rose, she recognized the black edge of Dreadmaw armor around the smoked meat. For several seconds, nobody moved. Jack added sauce to his own plate. It needed more time, he said. 8 hours was the best they could do. Rask stood so quickly that his chair scraped across the floor. His hand moved toward the blade. Jack reached across the table with his fork and caught the loose edge of Rask's glove against the cloth. The captain froze. Nothing spilled. Nothing broke. Jack took another drink of water. Sit down, Captain. Rask pulled once, realized the position would only embarrass him further, and lowered himself into the chair. Jack removed the fork, wiped it clean, and returned it beside his plate. Vera finally understood why the humans had arranged the meal. It was not celebration. It was not cruelty. It was a message delivered in the most ordinary human language possible. You brought us a threat. We studied it. We adapted. We made it useful. A warning tone sounded from Vera's wrist communicator. The Korth fleet had moved into attack formation above New Denver. 12 cruisers had locked weapons on the city and demanded the immediate release of every captured soldier. Rask smiled. Now Earth will understand fear. Jack looked toward the ceiling. They should check their sensors. The room's main display activated. A map of near-Earth space appeared, filled with Korth ships. Then new points of light emerged around them. Platforms hidden in low orbit. Defense systems rising from the oceans. silent launch sites opening across the moon. Human targeting lines connected to every Korth vessel at the same time. The fleet commander's voice came through the speakers, suddenly less confident. Commander Thal, confirm whether this is a negotiation. Vera looked at Jack. Is it? Jack cut a small piece from his plate. It can be. And if they fire? Then dinner gets interrupted. The fleet commander remained silent for 3 long seconds. One by one, the Korth weapon locks disappeared from the display. The cruisers powered down and moved away from the planet. Rask stared at the map as if it had betrayed him. Vera lifted her fork and tried the meat. It was smoky, tender, and lightly sweet. She hated that it was good. Jack watched her reaction. Better with the sauce. Vera set down the fork and addressed the fleet. Withdraw beyond lunar orbit. All Dominion forces will comply with Earth security instructions. Rask turned toward her in disbelief. Commander, this is surrender. No, Vera said. This is survival. She looked around the room at the humans who had defeated soldiers without destroying them, contained a monster without becoming one, and answered an invasion threat without raising their voices. The Korth had believed strength meant making others afraid. Earth had shown her something worse. True strength did not need an audience. Jack leaned back and glanced at the empty serving cart. So, he said, what did your people bring for dessert? Vera almost laughed. Then she remembered the hidden defenses, the ruined assumptions, and the quiet man across from her. The Korth had arrived believing they were the predators. They left knowing Earth had only been polite.